Welcome everybody to this episode. And you might recognize this truck. We've had it on the channel for a few times. This truck's here for a job that I've never done before. Although I've seen a lot of people do it. And it's a job I plan to do on my own truck. Except for on my own truck, it's a little different situation. So, if you're not from the channel and you're unfamiliar with this vehicle, this is a 99 Ranger. This Ranger, I've been working on it for a while now. It's got some problems, as do most Rangers these days. This one needs a steering rack. That's what we're doing today. So, there are differences between the four-wheel drive and the two-wheel drive racks. Mainly being on the bottom side. So we're not going to get too far today because it's humid, it's hot, it's nasty, it's gross, and you know, just overall not ideal working conditions. So this has got the 2.5 in it, and we put a power steering pump on this thing a little while ago, and it's so bad that when you put the fluid in, it goes right back out the bottom. So, the seals wore out on the driver's side of the rack, and that's why we're changing it out. A couple things to note. If you're skittish around airbags, you might want to go ahead and disconnect the negative battery terminal. Because we are messing with the steering system, we have to unhook the steering column from the gearbox, so you're going to have to lock the steering wheel to keep the clock spring intact. So there's a bolt down inside the on the column that we can go ahead and pull out. I'll show it to you when we get there. We're not going to get to it tonight though. Tonight's goal is to try to get the cooler lines off and the pump line off. So we're going to pull the cooler out on this one. So we're going to take the return line off the pump, off the cooler, and then we're going to unhook the pressure line off the gearbox. So I'm going to show you a couple things real quick, then we're going to stop yapping and get to work. Alright, so I'm going to see if I can get you a good view of the lines. You got two lines. You got an upper line and a lower line. Upper line goes to the pump. And you can trace the line down. You'll see it down there. Its upper line goes to the pump. Lower line goes to the cooler. There's another two lines that you don't mess with. Those lines go, those are circulation lines from one side of the rack to the other. You don't mess with those. You just take off the two lines on the side. My experience with these fittings is they can be a huge pain in the butt. So I'm going to do my best to get them broke loose. We need a drain pan, even though I'm not suspecting there's any fluid in this because it's all been drained out. I do want to catch whatever's in there though. So I'll get, I'll figure out how I'm going to film this so that we don't spend all day on it, and then I'll let you know how we're going to do it. So I'll be right back. Alright, we got you kind of a good view here. Here's your lines up here. I'll kind of tip the camera back a little bit. Alright, so we got this one here is your top line. Goes to your cooler. Bottom line looks like it goes up to the power steering pump. I'm not sure what size these lines are, but we got to get them broke loose. Looks like they're 18. Well, that's not good. Let me double check that. Let me put a 16 on it, see if that helps anything. Because that line is loose. He may not need a rack. Although, if that line is loose, we have another problem on our hand. Yeah, that line's loose. That line is loose. Let me try tightening it up and then putting fluid in it and see if it still leaks. Those lines just don't magically come loose. And if it turns out I don't need to put a rack in this truck, then that is a bonus for me. Because I really don't want to have to put a rack in this truck. Alright, let me check that upper line here now. That one I'm going to have to get from the top side because I can't reach it from down here. Alright guys, I'll tell you what. I'm going to leave the camera running. I got this line tightened up. I'm going to put some transmission fluid in here because that's what we need here. You guys tell me if that leaks. Because it's leaking right around this edge right here, and the only thing other than the seals is that hose right there. And if that hose is the only reason this thing's not holding fluid, then we can move on to other items such as why the damn thing won't warm up. Let me go get some brake. Let me go get some fluid and I'll be right back, guys. I'll go ahead and put some fluid in here. I got a drain pan under there to catch anything that comes back out. We're using Mercon 5 because there's a TSB that says that's what you use going forward. We'll pour a little bit into the pump. Pour what I have into the pump. And then we'll give that a minute for all the air bubbles to come out. And then we're going to start the truck after we get all the air bubbles out of the pump. I'm going to start the truck and then we're going to see if the line leaks. If it's just a line leak and there's nothing else wrong with this truck, then we're going to look into the cooling system, because the cooling system's having problems on this truck. Let's see if we're leaking out the bottom. I don't see any drips. And pull this drain pan a little closer there. Alright guys, so I could have had this thing fixed last year and I wasn't even aware of it. I didn't even check the lines. So here's a tech tip for you. Before you diagnose a complete vehicle breakdown, check your lines. I'm going to go get the key and start this up. I'll be right back. I'm going to keep you guys back here on the bench. I'm going to go ahead and start it. And then we'll get under there and see if we get anything in our pan. We need a brick. I don't trust that parking brake, so we're going to put a brick behind the wheel. We're going to put our... Oh, it's almost full down there. I'm going to pour some more down in there. I'm going to pull my light back so that we don't mess up my light. Right there. Put the cap back on so we don't have any issues with splattering. I'll be surprised if that's all it was, is just a line. The line coming from the pressure side. get underneath it. It empties out real quick when you got it running, so let's take a look. You can see where it was wet on the bellows boot. That was my original diagnostic. That's what made me think that the rack was bad, because it was leaking off the bellows boot. So let me cycle that steering a little bit more to get all the fluid through it, and then I'll probably go get a couple more quarts of fluid, and then that job should be done if we come back tomorrow and there's nothing on the ground. I'm gonna leave that drain pan under there though, and if that drain pan's still empty in the morning, then that was our problem. We had a bad, our line was loose. Alright, so we're going to have to go get some more fluid for it. So I'm going to stop for tonight. We'll pick it up tomorrow. I'm going to get under there. I'm going to brake clean all of it. Make sure it's all clean. That way we have no doubt of anything wrong here. Then I'll get my pan underneath. I'm going to finish filling it up. I got to go get a couple quarts of ATF. We'll cycle it through until that pump's nice and happy. Then tomorrow, first thing we're going to do is we're going to get underneath. We're going to check and see if we have any drips or any marks anywhere underneath. I'll tighten that line up a little bit more. I think that'll do it. So I'll see you tomorrow. Here's the next day, and I've got some news to report back. We're going to have to put a rebuild kit on this rack, because to get a new rack for this is going to be more than what I have available for the shop. The local parts store can't get a rack for this truck. They're calling it unavailable because they currently are out of stock. So I ordered a rebuild kit, which has got all your seals in it, because I checked this last night before I called it a day and saw some dripping on the bellows boot. So I went ahead and cut the clamp and pulled the bellows boot back and got a handful of trans fluid. So I'll show you where it's leaking. We're going to try to get it to a point where I can pull the rack off. I'll have some parts coming in this weekend so we can rebuild it this weekend. So let me get this hood in so we got a little bit of light under here. I'll show you what we did or what we got to do. So alright, so let me show you the damage, and then we'll get started on getting it ready to come out. Alright, so I pulled the bellows boot, which is common procedure whenever you're evaluating a leak. As you can see, the boot's been pulled back, and it was full of transmission fluid. So this crossover pipe. It's got fluid in it. So I'm guessing that both sides went bad. You can see up inside there, down here in the bottom is where the leak is. So we're going to be pulling the rack out and we're going to rebuild it. Unfortunately, that's the course we have to take. So our loose line was just a fluke. So this is what we're going to do. Like I said earlier, you only have to take the lines off on the, well, I guess if you're looking at it from this view, it's the right hand side. I don't know if you can see the lines too well, but they're on the right hand side. There's two lines. We're going to mark the top line top with a piece of blue tape. I'm going to get some tape. I'm going to mark top on it, and I'm going to wrap it around that line. That way, when we get ready to put it back on, we put the line on in the right spot. Because if you don't put the line back on in the right spot, and you rebuild these, or you replace these, which is what I prefer to do, it'll blow the lines out, and you'll damage the rack. So I'm going to get back under here with some brake clean and get this all cleaned up. I'll get you mounted up on the top of the engine so you can look down. Over in this neighborhood down here, you probably see the lines from right there. I wish I could move this air conditioning line out of the way, like this. I don't know if I can without breaking something. So you can get down in there now and you can see stuff. But I'll get a light in it and we'll get started here in just a minute. Alright guys, I got you about the best angle I can get given the circumstances. I'm not going to zoom in because if I zoom in, you're going to get this cap for the rest of the video. So as long as you can see down under there where I'm at, you're good to go. If you can't, then what I'll do is when I get done with a section, I'll run the camera down there off the pod and I'll show you what I got done. That way you can kind of understand what's going on. I apologize for the camera angles. I don't have the correct tripod that I need to do this with. And I don't have a 2-post lift to put it in the air to use this tripod properly. So, as they say, those are first world problems, or third world problems, or problems for another day. Let's do that one. Alright, so we don't have the luxury of a line being loose being our problem, because if we open up our lid here, it's probably empty. Yep, it's empty again. So I went ahead and sprayed it down under there with some brake clean. I'm going to take those lines off. The top line, whichever one that is, looks like it's going to be the line going to the cooler. So the top line goes to the cooler. The bottom line goes to the pump. So we got to take the bottom line off first. And then I'll put tape around the other line and I'll write top on it. That way I know when I put it back together that one goes on first. Alright, so let's get started. Lines are going to be a line wrench 18 millimeter. Both sides are the same. So let's get the pump line off first, which is right here. Get this pump line off and then we'll go up there and we'll get the other line off and then we'll be okay. Tell you what, I tightened that one up real good because it didn't want to come loose. Keep your drain pan under here because we did have fluid in the system, so it's going to drain out. So make sure you get your pan all ready. Make sure we don't strip out any threads in this rack because we're going to have to put it back in when we're done. I'm going to come up and pause the camera so that you don't have to go through this with me. I'll pause the camera and I'll bring it back when I'm ready to show you something. So I'll be back in a little bit. Alright, I got my lines off. So now I'm going to take the camera off the pod. I'm going to take you down underneath and show you what I got done so far. Alright, so I got my line marked for the top. As you can see right there, that's the line that goes in the top of the rack. That's also the line that goes into the lower part of the cooler. My other line right here, that goes from the pump to the rack. I got that draining into my pan. So that's what it looks like if you got the lines off. You can see them right there. So now I can turn my flashlight off up there. I got to take off the top line on the cooler. That goes to the reservoir. And then after I take that off, which I'm just going to unhook it from there and just slide it off the back, then I need to come up top side, and there's a bolt or a nut right there and one on the other side that holds the cooler in. So you guys can see us do that. That'll be done. And then as soon as we get the cooler off, then we can move on to getting the nuts loose that holds the tie rod ends together on the inner tie rod, not the ones that hold it to the car or the truck. So let me get that line loose real quick, and then I'll get you in a better spot and you can see me get the cooler off the top. So it'll be just a minute. Well, it appears I won't be able to film what I wanted to film, so I'll just have to show you when I get it done. There's a bolt. It's actually a stud. There's a nut, and then the cooler sits in, and then there's another nut, and then it goes through the frame. There's a nut on the bottom of it, and the two nuts hold the rack in place. So, all right, you can kind of see where we're going here. You can see the bolt that holds the rack on. There's another one above it, or nut I should say, holds the cooler on. We got to get that loose. That's going to be up here. It's a 24 millimeter. No, it is not. Bottom bolt is a 24 millimeter. Upper bolt feels like it's a 21 millimeter. So let me go grab a 21 millimeter. We'll take that one loose. Grab some different wrenches here. I got a 19, a 21, and a 22. So we're going to figure out which one that one is. Start with the 22. Nope, but it's close. So it's going to tell me it's probably going to be a 21. Yep, it's probably going to be... Nope, it's not a 21, so it's got to be a 19. Alright, let's see if the 19 works. It works. It's probably an 18, and I don't have my 18 wrench out here because I can't locate the stupid thing. So let's see, that has to turn... Let's see here, it goes this way, I think. Let me see if it goes the other way. Alright, let's go. Since I have a 19 and I have an 18 socket in the toolbox, we can put it on blue and try to get it loose that way. Let me see what I can do here. Okay. Now I'll get our socket on here. Let's see, it goes. And let me see. That one would turn the other way. It goes like that. Alright, let's get up in here and see if we can get this nut off of here. Well, there we go. Alright. Now we got the nut loose. I need to build me a rig. And let's see if I can get all my extensions together in a swivel, and we can build us a neat little rig to get them bolts and them nuts out. See how this does. Let's see if I have enough extensions to make the travel. Should have. Yep, I do. Okay. So I need to get underneath there and put that on the socket, or put the socket on the... Yep. I'll show you how I do this. or I'll tell you how I do it since I can't show you anything. You get underneath the truck with your extension set and you slide it up along the side here like this. You want to go in front of the control arm, or the sway bar I should say, because you're going to be turning this nut that sits above the sway bar. And then you want to take your socket and you want to drop it down on top of your bolt, or your nut in this case. And that'll stay put. And I'm going to take you up top side and show you how the top side of it works, since it's worked out better than I thought it would. Alright, so upside here, put you back in the pod, send you up this way. You can basically follow that extension set to find out where I'm going. So I'll send you down this way, put you in front of the radiator here so you can see the whole thing. You can see my extension set sitting right down there. Since I got the bolt loose, we can go ahead. I keep calling it a bolt, but it's a nut. Trust me, it's a nut. We can go right there with it, and we can either spin it off with our blue, or I can go get the electric ratchet out of the car. We can try to zip it off with the electric ratchet. I think I'm going to go do that, so I'll be right back. Alright, let's see what we can do here. I could benefit from probably another extension, but I think we'll be okay. Alright, and then we'll just alright, nuts off. I seen it drop. Hear it? It just fell off. Excellent. Now we gotta do the same thing on the other side. So what I did was I got under there with the socket and just the ratchet, and I got it broke loose, and then I built my apparatus. So you might be able to see it on this side a little bit better if I can get the camera to get in there. Yeah, you can see it really good here. I'll put the light bulb down on it so you can get a better view. It's right down there next to, now I'll have to get you on the other side of this hose right here, but I'll show it to you here in a second. Yeah, you can see it's right down there. You can kind of see it if this belt wasn't in the way. But yeah, we'll get to it here in a second. Now I got to get that one broke loose, and then we can zip that one off too. And of course, you got to rebuild it because it came apart on you. You got to put it back together. I might be able to set this on there without having to get underneath the truck this time. So we'll find out in a minute though. And put your part back together here. Okay, let's see. We got to get it down in between the belts like this, and get on top of the nut like this. You gotta kind of shove it around a little bit till you get, as soon as you got a confirmed lock, which I do not have, you gotta have a confirmed lock. Let me see if I can get you in a better spot so you can see it. It's really hard to film these things. You might be able to see it from there. I'm not real sure. I know you can see my tripod leg, which is not what you're supposed to see. We're not doing a video on tripod legs. We're doing a video on steering racks and how they are increasingly a pain in the butt. Alright, so here's... Alright, so we're over there then. Okay, so if you follow that straight down, you'll see the nut. I've got to get underneath it because I don't have a confirmed lock on it just yet. And if I were to hit that with the electric gun, it would spin off in a minute and I wouldn't get nowhere. I got to get it exactly on target. You can sometimes feel it lock on, but sometimes you can't. And it's times you can't that you got to make sure you get on it. So now we can move this up and down. I can do this with it now. Get my socket down on there, and then you just watch it as it comes up. And then you just drop it in your pan. Then you pull your apparatus up like this. Completed, of course. All right. Now I'll take you underneath and we'll pull the, we'll see if that takes the cooler off. We'll just set the cooler somewhere out of the way. Probably in the back of the truck or something. Alright, so you can see your hardware there is missing on that side. And same thing on that side. Your nut sits like that. So you should be able to, at this point, just to pick up your cooler and lift it off your studs like this. Yeah, maybe. There's that side and there's that side. One cooler. We're going to set it in the drain pan because it's still got some stuff in it. Now you can kind of see what we're going with here. That top nut, you do not move. That is a castellated nut. That nut stays put. You do not have to change it out. The nut you're going to take off is this bottom one right here. That's your 24 mil. Before we get that far, we need to take that nut loose. So if we have to take tie rod end off, we can. Then we got to get up in there, and I can show you the pinch bolt. There's your pinch bolt. We got to get that next. Of course, I'm not going to be able to film taking it out. It looks like we got some crush washers we're going to have to change out because we got a plastic seal right there that hopefully we get a new one of. So we got to get that out. We need to loosen up the nuts for the tie rod ends. Then we debate whether we can take this out leaving the wheels on it or not. That will be the debate. I think I can do it, but then again I don't know, because if I have to take tires off, then I'm putting a jack stand under here and all that good stuff. So anywho, I'm going to go ahead and get that nut that bolt right there taken out, and then I'll show you that part when I'm done. Yeah, I'm sorry if this is going to be all choppy, but you can kind of see what we're doing here. There's our cooler. Okay, so I'll make sure the cooler's drained before. Alright, we're going to go ahead and get that pinch bolt pulled. I think it's a 13, but I don't know. I grabbed one. If it's smaller, of course, we'll know in a minute. Get this pinch bolt pulled. Since we're looking right at it, right here. I was right, it is a 13. You want a 3-inch extension so you got room to get it loose. Then you take your ratchet and you hook onto it with your ratchet. Yeah, try to. Let me put my ratchet on first, and then we'll put it on the bolt. Probably be the easiest way to do this. Go up in the inside of the control arm, and we need to lock the steering wheel at this point. So let me find something I can lock the steering wheel with, because otherwise you're not going to be able to get that loose. Give me 1 second. Got it locked. We're ready to break it loose now. I think my socket fell off because I jerked the wheel. So if it fell off, I got to put it back on. No, it didn't. It just hit some stuff. All right, here we go. Get that pinch bolt loose. All right, we're going to take the bolt, remove it from the vehicle. maybe. I'm going to put this, you got to take the pinch bolt completely out. And then I think we can lift it up and off once we get the bolt out. This bolt sits inside of a groove, kind of like on the tie rod end, or the ball joint. It's like a ball joint bolt. Sits inside of a slide. So you got to make sure your wheels are in the straight ahead position when you take it out. If they're not, and you go to put it back together, it's going to be really crooked. I might go ahead and just put the electric ratchet on that since it's being such a pain in the butt. Get that bolt out of there, then we can get under the hood and pick up on the steering shaft and lift it up off the steering gear. That'll be in good shape. There we go. There it is. And the socket fell in the drain pan again, so I'm going to have to go digging for that now. Here's our bolt. In case you haven't seen what the bolt looks like, I'll show it to you. Because I got to come up there anyway and pull that arm back. Here's your bolt. I'm going to set it up here next to the wipers, so I'll forget where it is and I'll lose it in 20 minutes. Alright, so we got our bolt out at the bottom. Now we got to reach down under here and grab our steering arm right in here. Pull it up and off like that. There. Steering arm is off. Now, from this point forward, don't touch your steering wheel. You'll jack up your clock spring and you'll really be hating life. Alright, so next step is going to be, we need to, let's see. Yeah, I think that threads through. I'm going to have to look at it when I get the rack out. Alright, so next step we got to do is I need to remember what size those nuts were. I think they are 19 millimeter on the tie rod ends. We got to loosen up the tie rod ends on the inner tie rod end side, not on the knuckle side. We have to take the knuckle apart too, but I think I'm going to have to pull the tires off briefly to do that. So that'll be another part. So I'm going to get that loose off camera. I'm going to call it a night, and we'll see you in the morning. Alright, so here's the last part, and then the rack comes out. I was thinking about filming the part where the rack comes out for you guys, but I don't know. We'll see what happens, because the next part's pretty routine. Probably not going to film a whole lot of it because of the fact it is routine. Got to take that wheel off, and then I got to pull the outer tie rod off. Do the same thing on the passenger side. The two bolts that hold the rack to the frame, 24 mil, you're going to need a wrench and a socket, a deep socket, the bottom nut. I've already got those loose. So the only thing I need to do here is I need to get the tire off, pull the tie rod ends, take the nuts off the bolts that hold the whole thing to the frame, and pull it back out. So pretty simple. We'll see what we can do. I don't want this video getting to be too long because I've already edited about 45 minutes of it. So I'm going to be skipping through this last part, and then the building of the rack is going to be an entire video of its own, because that's going to be more of an instructional since I've never done it before. So I'm not going to film this part up here because it's pointless. So I'll bring you back later on when I get ready to pull the rack out so you can see how I do it. So we'll be back in a little bit. Alright, we're going to go ahead and record this part. getting the outer tie rod end off. I do it a lot differently than most people do. Usually they'll come in here and they'll bang on this and pop it up, all that stuff. No, not me. I don't do that. First thing I do is I get my 22mm socket, I get it on that nut right there and buzz that nut off real quick. See? I set my nut in my hubcap. Then after I do that, I get my tie rod remover, slide that in here like this so I can get it to fit. I might be able to bang this one out because these are fairly new. Let me go grab a hammer and we'll see if we can tap it out. Alright, here we go. Smack this real quick. There it is. It actually worked, I can't believe it. So let's go see if I can get the other side broke free. And then I'll get you in a position where you can see real good under here, because with the tire off you can see a whole bunch over here. We'll get that taken care of, and then we'll get this rack out and get it on the bench. Start taking a look at what we got to do next. So I'll be right back. Alright, let's get you guys in position here so you can see how this rack comes out, because we're ready to pull the rack out now. Try not to zoom you in too much on the truck. Kind of pointless really. Alright. So you can see everything that you need to see. We're going to zoom back a little bit so you can get a better view of it. Tie rod ends are loose. We've got the 2 bolts that I've already loosened up under here. Take these loose. You want to use a wrench up top, socket on the bottom. You're going to need to hold it because that upper nut, this whole stud spins if you don't hold it still. So we'll set that down there. And we'll set this down over here. Alright, and then we'll pop our bolts out from the top. We'll put our nut back on it so we don't lose our nut. Set that somewhere. Doesn't matter if it's left or right, just as long as you set it somewhere. And then we're going to push this one up. Oh, that one doesn't want to come out. That one wants to be a pain in the butt. Alright, so we need to move our hoses up above the sway bars so they don't get in the way. Take our rack. We got to get it off this bolt right here. If this bolt can come out, that'd be great. I'm going to have to smack it with a hammer. And then when we get the rack out, we'll put the tires back on it so that we can use our jacks elsewhere. If you want to do jack stands, you can. Put them underneath cross member here. I don't want to screw up my rubber mat, that's why I'm not doing that. There's that. Make sure your washers stay put. Alright. So let's see if we got to rotate this or not. I don't think we do. I've never taken a rack out of a truck, so this is brand new to me here. From this point forward, it's unexplored territory, so we're going to learn together. Oh my Lord, that was easy. So easy. There's your steering rack, everybody. I'll move you to the table and then we'll put it up on the bench and see what we got to do to take it apart. And then before I close up tonight, I'll put some tires on this truck so that we can get the jacks out. There's your steering rack. That's amazing. I never thought it would be that bad because I watched a video of a guy that did this and it was on a 4-wheel drive and he had to pull the sway bar up to get it out. Let's clean up our bench for this week's episode of On the Bench, which because of this rack we're going to have an On the Bench special episode where the whole episode's going to be on the bench. So let me get you in a position here where you can see, and I'll go grab that rack and we'll set it on the bench and see what we got to work with. Alright, so here we are, folks. We're on the bench. Here's our steering rack. 3F, fluid flush filter. So we might assume that this has been replaced once already. Okay, well, if it's been replaced, well, at any rate, I need to show you where the leak is, because you didn't get to see a good view of it last time. I don't know if I can rebuild this rack. It all depends on if I can get this center section out. So let's see. I'll show you where the leak was, and then we're going to end it for tonight, because from this point forward it's going to be rebuilding the rack. So I think this has been replaced. I don't see any signs of a Ford logo on this anywhere. Looks like it was trying to leak out of that hole right there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this has been rebuilt. This is a rebuild. Because on the, if it was an OE rack, somewhere in this flat area it would have a Ford logo and a part number. And I don't see anything like that on here. You guys are looking at it with me, and I don't think you pick up on it. Alright, so let's see. Looks like, let me show you where the leak is. Leak's right there. This front seal right here is leaking. You can still see where the fluid's coming out. That's going to do it for this episode. So we'll see you on the next one.